What up, world? This is the GoalNet recording here live from Chicago. Today's video is part 2 of the Bauer Vapor Hyperlite comparison with the Bauer 2X Pro. First video, which debuted yesterday, was the leg pads. Today's video is the glove and blocker. So real quick, if you're not fully up to date on Bauer and their marketing and their naming scheme, last year 2X Pro was the top of the line. That is the glove and blocker on the left. The 2021 top of the line is the Hyperlite. So both of these gloves and blocker are in the Vapor family. And I just point out the name change because if you go to a store and you see the 3X Pro, that is essentially the second price point gear. So even though it's a very high level gear, Sorokin for the Islanders actually wore the 3S Pro, so the equivalent in the Supreme family this year. Very high quality gear. It is not the top of the line with all of their features. So 2X Pro is replaced by Hyperlite. So first things first, just taking a look at the glove and the blocker. Hopefully it's clear in the video, but not too much has changed in terms of the overall design of the glove and the blocker. So going from 1X to 2X, there are some pretty big changes on the blocker, going from a traditional two-piece sidewall and blocker and the thick board down to the thin board. The Hyperlite is very much a subtle evolution on the blocker compared to the glove. And then the glove keeps that same 60-degree break that we've had in 1X, 2X, and now the now in the Hyperlite. But what's really different is the construction of the gloves. So it's a very difficult thing to show in the video because I don't cut my gloves open and rip them apart. But what it translates to is a glove that significantly closes better and should hold its shape better over time as well. So let's pause, let's go in spec by spec and take a look. And hopefully this will clarify any questions anybody has about the differences between the 2019 2X Pro and the 2021 Hyperlite glove and blocker. So as I mentioned in the intro there, you can see this blocker board is very near net shape. It is not the traditional thick board. So it's tapered from the top down to the nose of the blocker there. You can see is probably the thinnest point. And then there are sort of 45-degree angles that slope from the front of the board back to the palm. So the Hyperlite blocker, Bauer basically minimized any of the excessive weight or excessive material that could be in a traditional blocker shape. And that's really what's different about the Vapor series, starting with the 2X compared to the older 1X, or compared with the Supreme, which is a traditionally shaped board. But as you can see, looking at these gloves side by side, the blocker board itself, the shape, the profile, the general construction, the way the finger pad's done is all very similar. One of the key differences you cannot see is that the core of the blocker has changed. It's got a newer material inside the Hyperlite blocker that is designed to increase the rebound speed even higher compared to the 2X. This is one category that I have yet to see another brand touch Bauer with in terms of technology, is the velocity that you get of the rebound off the blocker or the pad. So pretty crazy that Bauer's already very far ahead of the competition here and is even pushing that further. But 2X blocker is still going to have really hot rebounds. So again, sort of the shape and the feel of the blockers is rather similar. One of the biggest differences is basically the cuff. And if we look at it here, you can see that the white Aerolite foam kind of comes up and wraps around and covers the wrist strap, versus on the Hyperlite, it's a wide open design. So even though you could get a little extra protection in the side of the wrist there, which is maybe something that would come into play in the RVH position, say, or hugging the post, any of those sort of fluke goals as well, where pucks get deflected and go places you'd never expect. That piece is removed, but basically the big benefit is if that was really difficult and cumbersome really on the 2X to adjust the wrist strap versus wide open on the Hyperlite, so it's much easier. If we take a look at the back side of the blocker, again, you can see 2X Pro had that pad covering the wrist strap wide open. The other big change, if you look at the left one here, you see we have this white mesh material versus there we have the red foam. Bauer upgraded the backhand of the blocker to have more Aerolite foam. So it's a very lightweight, high impact absorbing foam. So even though we get rid of the Aerolite over there on the wrist, it's in the cuff. So hopefully sort of the net result there is the same amount of protection. It's just applied differently. The other big change to this is that the Vapor glove is actually smaller on the Hyperlite than it was on the 2X. So the 2X had, and when I'm talking about the glove, like the Nash glove that your hand actually sits in within the blocker, the 2X Pro had a glove side that would be considered a large by most other OEMs, versus with Hyperlite, they standardized the glove size to match most of the other equipment manufacturers out there. So when you try on this glove, the size should feel very similar to pretty much any other glove size out there versus the 2X with larger. That's really subtle, but I'm about 6'2". I have decent sized hands. I was swimming in the 2X glove, so very happy to hear that Bauer kind of standardized with the rest of the industry on that. And then one of the other key changes is if you look at the the 2X glove, you see that we have the mesh there, in the back of the thumb and in the gussets on the finger stall, versus here we have black material on the Hyperlite. That is a carryover of the technology from the ultrasonic. And all of that black material is basically like a neoprene, so it sticks a little bit to your hand and it's a very near net shape, but it also stretches really nice and organically when you move your hand. So it enables the blocker palm to fit tighter, but then the glove itself actually stretches more. So I'm somebody who likes the blocker glove very tight. This is phenomenal design from Bauer. And as you can see, zooming in, you can see the material's almost shiny, like I say, like a neoprene kind of wetsuit material. And that is the Connect Plus is what Bauer calls this technology. And as you can see, it carries over to the back. There's a little bit of pour on in the fingertips, versus with the older design, you just have the mesh stalls. So very traditional design. So that's subtle, but that's probably, in my opinion, the biggest noticeable upgrade on the Hyperlite blocker. So rebounds, maybe you'll notice in performance a bit more, but again, the Bauer's so good there already. I haven't noticed a huge boost. You're kind of taking the best and just putting a little turbocharger on it. But the way this glove feels and stretches, to me, is the best improvement. You can see it's nice and snug on my hand, and that black material just stretches really nice and organically. And then the last upgrade on the blocker is on here, the 2X. They had this thermal core material, and as you can see, got a little wear in there over time. As I mentioned in the pads video, I did lend my 2X set out to a junior goalie just to get a lot more reps in them to check out Bauer's durability and vouch that it's greatly improved. Versus on the Hyperlite here, this is the Sure Grip, kind of Nash-like textured material. So this should have a lot better wear properties than the thermal core did here too as well. So another subtle upgrade, but really shows that Bauer is dialed in terms of, making better, longer lasting products. All right, so now on to the glove. As I mentioned, the glove is a huge upgrade versus the 2X Pro. Unfortunately, most of the internals, the way they change, the way the pour on and the curve is done in the palm area is literally impossible to show you in a video. So I will try and talk through it, but in quick summary, 2X was a huge upgrade in front of any Bauer glove in front of it in terms of the game ready break that it came with. So better than a Supreme, any of the old reactors, things like that. One of the things I found with the 2X though is over time the glove lost its shape a little bit. Hyperlite keeps the amazing game ready break that came with 2X, but all the internals were changed to make sure that the glove holds its shape a lot better over time. And I can safely say this is the best 60-degree glove I have ever used. And knowing that is probably the most popular glove break on the market, that's really a big statement. Because in my opinion, Bauer's gloves were always probably the weakest parts of their sets. And now this Hyperlite glove is probably the best, like I say, 60-degree glove break I've used. And I was even communicating the other day with NCAA goalie Matt Murray, won the national championship at UMass last year. He even said Hyperlite is the best glove he's ever used bar down as well. So this is really a great glove. And I just mentioned the college reference just to say other goalies as well are noticing the huge improvement that I have with the glove. So we'll try and zoom in and again explain this as best I can without being able to tear the glove apart. But at a high level, as you can see, gloves both look similar. One difference is I always get a single T because I like the old-fashioned snap. But 2X was standard with a single T. The Hyperlite is standard with a double. And as you can see, this kind of has an offset T where the T goes upwards versus this has a more traditional T where it's right on the glove break angle. So if you do get the single T in the Hyperlite, that is one subtle difference versus the 2X. All right, so as we zoom in here, if we look at the 2X Pro on the left here, we can see we have all of that traditional stitching across the palm of the glove and then even throughout the palm. And the palm almost has a flat gap right in the middle there that makes almost like a U-shaped channel. Versus if we look over at Hyperlite, there's absolutely zero stitching in this glove. And that is part of the new construction. So there's no stitch lines in the center of the palm and then none through the glove break as well. All those subtle tweaks are designed in the spirit of ensuring that the glove closes better, and it truly works really well. So again, subtle stuff, probably sound like a broken record. It's really hard to show in a video, but I'm just really harping on this because it's a huge change. Hyperlite is a phenomenal 60-degree glove, and I wish it was something like the Stabiliflex knee that on the pad, it's really easy to show what Bauer's done to improve the seal and the rotation. It's really tough to show on the glove here, but it's a huge improvement. So when I talk about the glove losing shape over time, you can see how I can kind of bend it in a few different places in the palm. And then I would also say that U shape, you can see how it comes down and it's almost flat in the bottom here. It almost looks like a skateboard half pipe versus some gloves have a bit more of a V shape where it's a point. So that was kind of how they did the break. So the glove closes great, but I just found over time that could lose a bit of shape. Versus when we zoom in on Hyperlite, you can see that sort of half pipe shape is much less pronounced and it's more rounded and open down there. And then you can see when I go to twist, I cannot twist the glove and torque it. To borrow a pad term, it doesn't have the torsional flex like it did on the 2X, and this is great because that means when you go to close your glove, there's no lost energy and it's all gonna come into closing the glove there versus on the 2X, sometimes the glove I feel could get a little bit sloppy. So that's a huge improvement on the Hyperlite versus the 2X. And obviously, basically the main function of a glove is to catch the puck. So improving the closure that much, even though it's something that if you look at these gloves side by side in a retail store, you barely may notice it. It is a huge improvement on the Hyperlite. And just one more time after we show the Hyperlite, you can see how much I can sort of twist that glove in the palm. And that is really the difference that Hyperlite's improved. And these are both game ready breaks as well. And so the last point for me comes down to closure as well. My other biggest pain point in using the 2X is, like I said, great 60-degree glove, great closure, but it just kind of felt like it lost its shape over time. So one of the reasons I attributed that was what I showed a few seconds ago was sort of the torsional flex that was into the glove and the way you can kind of break it in a couple different ways. Check out my other videos for more explanation on that. One of the other things I found is that this wrist strap seemed to have a lot of play in it. And as I wore the glove, it would kind of slide around or it wouldn't sit exactly in my wrist in the same place. And the Hyperlite does not have this problem. And the only thing I can really attribute it to is if we look at this, this is a very, this nylon, the way this big webbing is a very soft, flexible strap versus the new one on the Hyperlite is a much tighter nylon. And it is a much stiffer, like you cannot ball it up the way that you could with the 2X. And so I believe that it is that stiffer strap that makes all the difference where it's more rigid. So it actually helps hold your glove in the right place. And then you can also see here we have the thermocore material and it's kind of a chunk there. And then here, this is just more of a stiffer foam piece. And it's also cut down and rounded more. So Bauer's made a couple subtle tweaks there. And what that really does is it allows your hand to stay locked into the glove significantly better. So 2X felt a little sloppy at times. No complaints with that at all with Hyperlite. Like I say, I can comfortably say this is the best 60-degree glove I've ever used. So that concludes today's comparison video. If you enjoyed this, please throw me a Subscribe. If you feel I missed anything, throw it down below in the comments and I'll be sure to respond. This is the GoalNet signing out.